Welcome to VCR, Vintage Cinema Rewind. Cinema. Why did I say it like that?
I don't know, but I'm not editing
Did I
this.
become Sean Connery for a second?
I guess your Welsh ancestry, which has heretofore been unmentioned.
Actually,
just
it's my
awakened.
Spaniard ancestry.
Oh, right. Excuse me. I'm not Spanish. I'm Egyptian.
The Egyptian Spaniard. Where is this episode gone?
Okay,
no. Let's get back to what we're doing.
Okay.
So, I don't know how to go from here. I don't know how to go from here.
In honor of these multicultural roots, we are talking about Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is actually us coming full circle. It's been a full year almost at this point of just doing foreign movies. And
where does the time go?
Yeah. Something really cool about doing Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon is this time last year we did Gladiator, one of both mine and your favorite movies. This movie was actually competing with it for Best Picture at the Oscars.
No shit, really? I guess that it was 2000, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Right on the little cusp of our cutoff date.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, what did we do with Gladiator? I don't even remember what the other movie we did was.
Who can say?
No, we didn't do Gladiator for the Oscars movies.
No, that was like November of 2024 or something.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
This has gotten murky. But anyway, so what's kind of neat about doing Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon is these were kind of like the two big heavyweights of that year.
Mm-hmm.
And so kind of talking about Oscars, we can maybe kind of bring it back to our Gladiator and our Gladiator episode because, both these movies are actually pretty important to the culture, I think, honestly.
Somewhat in conversation with each other.
Absolutely.
Yeah, or part of broader conversations.
Yeah, for sure. So this is a cool one to do. We haven't actually done a Chinese movie yet on this podcast either, so...
And what a movie to start with, too.
Absolutely.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
I've kind of been converted to Letterboxd, as I've mentioned, and people are still leaving... It's got to be a dozen or more reviews of this movie every day.
Really?
And they're usually pretty glowing.
Wow.
I popped into Letterboxd last night after watching this movie, and I'm paraphrasing a little, but somebody essentially said, why would we do anything when we could just watch this? And I'm like, I kind of get it.
Yeah, this is a very, very cool movie. Honestly, probably in contention for best movie that we've done in 2026.
I don't know that I'd go that far.
Wow, okay.
But I did, so far our 2026 streak has remained unbroken. I did have a good time with this one.
Yeah, this is a banger.
Yeah, and I don't know how you could not have a good time with this movie.
Yeah, I agree. And it's a really cool movie because, like you said, it's in conversation with, Chinese cinema, and it's really important to the history there. But because of maybe its history at the time that it comes out, Ang Lee, the director's kind of relationship with Western cinema, this is a movie that feels really, really easy as a Western audience to just automatically flow into and draw connections to famous works from Western cinema.
Yeah, well, it's funny, and this just shows what a total Western shithead I am. But watching this movie, I'm like, oh, it's kind of like The Matrix kind of ripped this off. And then I was like, wait, no, The Matrix came out before this.
Yeah.
Wait, no, The Matrix was ripping off movies that this movie is in conversation with.
Right.
It's ripping off a genre.
And these two movies, actually, The Matrix and Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, share a very, very specific connection that we'll talk about in the deep dive as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And, something even like Star Wars. We're kind of getting ahead on who this movie is for, but I think if you're a big fan of the Star Wars franchise, this is just such a classic good versus evil kind of story. I can feel the influence of the Jedi versus the Sith in the movie like this.
A little bit, yeah. It's a little bit, there is some more if people on wires fighting isn't enough for you because you're dead inside, there is a lot of cultural commentary going on, which I wasn't expecting going into this movie. Right? Yeah. Not to say I expected this to be a dumb movie, but there's a lot of stuff, particularly in regards to women and gender roles, where I was like, whoa, okay.
Yeah, this is a really, really cool movie. There's a lot to kind of dive into, I think. This is obviously the primary episode, and we're not talking any spoilers, so why don't we kind of do a brief overview, high level of the plot?
Well, it's interesting that you said that this movie is kind of easy to get into.
Yep.
And it is, but I did a little bit of research into this movie before we started.
Oh, interesting.
And it turns out it is based on the book.
You mean before you started watching?
No, before we started recording.
Oh, okay. Wow, you did the bare minimum amount of work.
Yeah, exactly. And yes, I do expect roses for that. But apparently this movie is based on the final book in a series. I think they said it was a pentalogy, which I think is...
Oh, no, it's the fourth of 5.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, you definitely kind of get that vibe rolling into it, because we start with Chow Yun Fat as Li Mu Bai, and a friend of the podcast, Michelle Yeoh,
Absolutely.
as Yu Shu Lin. I'm trying my best with these names. I'm sorry. I know those were probably wrong. Anyways, so Li Mu Bai is kind of like a sort of retired war hero who's decided to essentially give up the sword, quite literally. He has this famous sword that he used in battle for years called the Green Destiny.
Yeah.
And he's essentially giving it to Michelle Yeoh to give to like
Their lord?
I don't know, like a mutual friend or something.
I think it's like their lord.
Yeah, or something. It's a little unclear, but basically like he wants her to just give the sword as a gift to, I guess, their lord or something. And,
Yeah.
And he's decided he's going to give up fighting to live life as a monk. And it's a little unclear who she is. Like, she's apparently a warrior as well,
Yeah.
right? So, instantly we kind of meet these characters who are, certainly not old, but you kind of get the sense that they're on, like, the second half of their lives, right?
Right.
Like, maybe they're almost having midlife crises or something.
Yeah, it kind of, like you said, drops us off kind of, it feels like really partway through a story, and maybe the climax of the story has already even occurred, potentially, of these two characters that we're focused on to start with.
That's kind of why when I found out that this was the 4th book of a 5-part series, I'm like, you do kind of get that vibe. Like, there's a lot of history going on.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Anyways, though, in some ways, the movie's not really about either of them.
Yeah.
It's about this young woman who is kind of... She's been thrust into an arranged marriage with some guy who she doesn't know, and who, quite frankly, we don't know either, because we never even see him in this movie. And that young woman is...
Zhang Ziyi.
Right, as Jen Yu, who is essentially this precocious little brat who just so happens to be a secret master ninja assassin type.
Of the wuxia martial arts school.
Exactly. And the real thrust of the movie is about these 3 characters and their relationship with each other.
Yeah.
So it's interesting in that you've got these kind of 2 older, more grizzled characters who've clearly like seen combat. And then you've got this young woman who's clearly like a prodigy and is very talented.
Yep.
And she's chafing against the gender norms of her culture and is longing for a life of excitement. And then again, meanwhile, you've got these 2 older characters who've sort of lived the quote unquote life of excitement and have found it like you've got this tension between, idealism and what this young woman thinks a life by the sword is like. And then these 2 people who have spent many years living by the sword and are a little bit sick of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. And I mean, the other part of this as well is all 3 of these main characters are influenced by the wuxia martial arts school, which is actually a fictional type of martial arts fighting, but it became kind of like one of the main staples of Chinese cinema. So this fight style, again, if you've seen The Matrix, you're actually probably pretty familiar with this kind of fight style.
Basically, you know how in The Matrix, Neo seems just very weightless?
Yes.
That's kind of what it is.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And so I think that, part of the wuxia idea in Chinese cinema is wuxia is usually practiced by very noble, very ethical, and morally strong characters.
Mm-hmm.
What's really cool about this movie is there's this kind of chafing up against that because there's this kind of corrupt energy kind of encroaching on that and trying to influence Jen's character away from maybe the strong moral values that the wuxia school has.
Right. So that's kind of going back to the Star Wars comparison. It's like, is Jen going to become a Jedi or a Sith Lord?
Yes.
And it could go either way.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I know this movie is certainly better than the 3 prequel movies in Star Wars franchise. And honestly, it kind of is a little bit like those 3 movies kind of combined.
I guess so, yeah. I wasn't really thinking Star Wars too much when I was watching it, but I was kind of just, like, looking at it now, I'm kind of like, okay, sure, interesting.
Yeah, they're doing very similar things, right? So I think that's kind of the big draw in for this movie, and I think that's probably a good point to kind of maybe leave the plot. Now, aside from the plot, that, I don't want to spoil too much about, the actual fight scenes and the choreography in this movie are some of the best you will ever see in a film.
Yeah, I was blown away by some of these moments, right? I'll save a lot of it for a lot of the specifics rather for our deep dive, but there are some moments I was just like, wow, like I didn't
It's genuinely like inventive and impressive, and it feels inventive still over 20 years later.
Yeah, and one thing I noticed was that I really appreciated how these fight scenes use the environment to their advantage.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like some of these CG movies you see nowadays where it feels like they're just fighting in the void. Because they are. They're fighting against a green screen. But, like, there's a bar fight at one point where, like, they're actually using the terrain to their advantage. Like,
right.
As someone like me who writes fight scenes themselves, I'm like, oh, that is interesting. That is clever.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the coolest fights of the movie, in my opinion, as well. I also kind of, even mentioning the environment, kind of a tie to that. The scenery of this movie is just absolutely gorgeous. I think actually the first act of the movie, I kind of missed some of the plot points just because I was so focused on what was happening in the background.
Yeah. Maybe just going off of that a little bit, I will say that one thing I did find interesting about this movie is that there's no action for like the first 20 minutes. Ordinarily, I might think of that as a problem, but like I was actually kind of gripped just by like the characters and their little like interpersonal drama.
Yeah, and it kind of starts off small before becoming really outlandishly awesome.
Which is to this movie's credit. Like, I don't think I would be confident enough to wait that long.
Yeah, this movie is extraordinarily confident.
Yeah, I'd just be like, fighting right now.
Yeah. And I mean, Ang Lee himself, the director, is one of the most influential, probably Chinese, especially Chinese directors on the Western culture in history. I think, like, he has been nominated for multiple Oscars. I think he's won a few Oscars.
He has quite a range too. Like, he also did Brokeback Mountain, of which, by the way, you could never show me those two movies and be like, the same guy directed this. I'd be like, what?
Right. But I think he maybe shares some sort of some of the themes he maybe influences. Like, he definitely cares a lot about love and romance, right?
Yeah, and just like characters in general, right?
And repression as well.
Yeah. Ooh, I think we found the connective tissue.
Yeah, exactly. So he also did a few other movies like Sense and Sensibility, which came out before this. Life of Pi, which also I think was nominated for Best Picture when it came out.
Yeah, I saw that. That was, I
didn't see that one, but I've read the book.
You didn't like the book though?
No.
Yeah, I thought the movie was okay.
And he did the Eric Bana Hulk before it was cool.
That was pretty cool. Which I get. I think there's still a big question mark on whether that's technically part of the MCU or not.
Yeah, all of that's kind of up in the air.
Yeah.
I haven't actually seen any of the 3 Hulk movies from the 2000s. There's 3, right?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. It's actually, isn't there some kind of, and you might want to cut this out. I don't know. Isn't there some kind of like legal thing where like they actually can't make a solo Hulk movie because of some weird contract with some other studio?
Yeah, there's something weird there.
Because like there's never been a solo Hulk movie.
No, there has. In the
well,
2000s.
I mean, right, post the 2000s, like in like the MCU proper.
Yeah, I don't really know what the connection is there. Like, it probably got sold off separately, like Spider-Man did. So
who knows?
Yeah,
right?
That's really complex. Like, anything.
I mean, we did get
MCU is pretty complex.
I mean, we did get She-Hulk in 2022, and people had really strong feelings about it. But I digress.
Characters and people you may know. You did mention Michelle Yeoh, who's obviously, for a Western audience, like, she's the standout as the person we know. She's had such a great career the last 20 years. Like, I don't know that I
Holy balls.
her.
Yeah.
I don't know that I knew of her before we saw Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Well, it's funny, and again, this just shows how out of touch I can be, but, I saw Michelle Yeoh, I'm like, oh, hey, it's her. And then I thought of it, I'm like, I guess, yeah, like, this is kind of why they cast her in Everything Everywhere All at Once, because she does have this real strong martial arts background.
Yeah, I mean, even before this, like, I think it was about 15 years of doing martial arts movies and becoming one of the biggest Chinese actresses.
Yeah, so I mean,
or Malaysian. Sorry, she's actually Malaysian. She has had a really cool career. Like we said, she did Everything Everywhere All at Once. She was also in a movie called Sunshine from like 2007, which is a movie that I really like. It's an Alex Garland movie, so I'm a big Alex Garland and Danny Boyle as well. And it's a great movie that for the first 2 acts are like, this is one of the greatest sci-fi movies of all time. And then the third act happens and you're like, I wish you didn't do it that way.
Yeah, well, a lot of movies fall apart in the third act.
Yeah, that one falls apart extra hard, unfortunately. I feel like there's a couple tweaks that I could do to fix that script, but that's here nor there.
Well, if only we had a time machine, and if only we were script doctors.
Yeah, but I mean, she's even appeared in the MCU as well. She was in Shang-Chi.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That was a movie that no one remembers or talks about, but she was in it.
That is true. And also in the Wicked movies, which are movies also that I have no strong feelings towards one way or another.
Have you seen them?
No.
I haven't either.
I've seen The Wizard of Oz.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a thing.
Close.
Yeah.
I haven't seen those movies yet either.
And she's starring opposite Chow Yun-fat, who says playing Li Mu-bai. He's starred in the movie Hardboiled, which is on Tubi right now, and I've been meaning to watch it, and I just haven't yet. And
Okay.
I mean, this is a good excuse to go and watch it at some point. But he's been in a lot of martial arts movies as well. He's also kind of in a lot of police and investigative movies. So
He kind of looks like a cop.
yeah,
He could be a cop if he wanted to.
yeah. So he's he's a pretty famous Hong Kong actor. And then rounding out our three main characters, Jen Yu, played by Zhang Zi. I hadn't heard of Zhang before this movie, but she's actually one of the most important Chinese actresses of the 21st century, I guess.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, she is considered one of 4 Dan actresses of China. And what that means is that she is one of the 4 most bankable Chinese actresses of the 21st century.
You know, watching this movie, I do believe it.
Yeah.
She kind of carries this movie in a lot of ways.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny because, you know, especially coming at this in 2026, I was expecting Michelle Yeoh's character to be, and especially because we basically start with Michelle Yeoh's character, that she was going to be the focal point of this movie, and it was going to be like her internal struggle, wherever that was going to go, right? And it really pivots at the end of the first act.
Yeah, it's almost kind of like a secret main character sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, in a way, I mean, it's kind of obvious. Well, we'll talk about this in the deep dive.
I also want to mention Chang Pai as Jade Fox, the villain of the movie, one of the most famous Hong Kong American actresses of Chinese cinema as well. She's considered the first female action hero. So she was in a ton of martial arts films in the 60s and 70s.
Okay,
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, it's kind of cool that they were able to get her involved in this movie at this kind of point in her career.
Yeah, where she can play a villain,
Yeah.
essentially.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So she actually was in her 50s at the point that they were making this movie, and she passed away in 2024. So
Oh,
somewhat
too
recently.
bad.
Yeah, which feels like it was only yesterday, but been 2 years since 2024.
Yeah, the fact that 2024 is now 2 years ago really wrinkles my brain.
Yeah,
I'm the relentless onslaught of time, eh, kids?
exactly. So who is this movie for? Does it hold up to modern day watch? Absolutely holds up to a modern watch. I think this movie looks better than probably half the movies that have come out in the last 10 years.
I am inclined to agree because it's an actual movie, right?
Yeah. Well, it's an actual like shot on location with actors doing their thing, not with a shaky camera. Like you can clearly see the action at all times, and it's well choreographed.
I think that's the real thing, and I believe most of these actors did most of their own stunts themselves.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
Part of that is just because once you see it, you'll kind of understand. Like there's this levity to the action that it just flows so beautifully, right? Like it actually looks more like dancing at points in time than
it's very
than fighting.
graceful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, one of the most graceful action films I've ever seen. So, yeah, I mean, that's obviously one of the big draws of this movie. I think also, you know, the fact that it's an epic romance movie as well is awesome. I don't think we get...
Well, you know, it's funny. I went to Wikipedia, and they're like, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon is a action-packed, romantic, period, epic, wuxia.
Yeah.
Just a lot of adjectives in front of that. And I was just like, okay. I was almost like, Wikipedia, relax, all right? Like...
Well, and I think what's cool about this movie is because it takes its time, like certain plot threads and elements of this movie don't reveal themselves until really much later into the movie, right?
Yeah, again, it starts confidently in that it's not...
And pretty quaint.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I guess giving you some context into the wuxia martial arts movies as well. So basically the heroes of these movies generally, as we saw, they serve like a lord or some other kind of important figure in Chinese history. that we don't really actually get much of their origins, honestly. Like, we get kind of some for Lee and you. Really, for those two, we just kind of hear some stories here and there between the two of them.
It really does kind of take you, going off the comparison you made earlier. It almost is like it kind of takes you back to like the original Star Wars movie,
Yeah.
right? You get this sense of history, but it's not really belabored because it's not that important to what's going on.
Yeah, I kind of like that, honestly. I think
Me too.
I kind of miss when movies would do that a little bit more.
Well, especially now with like the endless franchisation of everything, where
Yeah.
it's like every single time period. Do you know that they just released a new 2D God of War game covering Kratos' childhood?
Yeah.
And I was a little like, why? You know what? I did look at a couple clips of it, and it actually looked okay, but I was still just like, why though, right? Like, just
Yeah.
leave Kratos alone.
That's kind of the problem ultimately, right? Is that, and it's definitely apparent in like franchises, like you said, like ones that are extremely profitable as well. It's like we have to keep this continuity going, and it's really important not to mess with the continuity.
And you need to know every single detail.
Well, because you have to play within the bounds of the continuity.
Right. No, and it's like you need to know nothing can be left to your imagination. You need to know every single detail about what this character is doing at this time in their life.
Well, and I almost think that's a fault just because of the fact that, they don't want to mess with the continuity. So it's like, well, okay, well, we've shown their character 10 years ago and we've shared the character now. Okay, well, now we can only do between those periods. And it's like, okay, well, now we can only do between those periods. And it's like, okay, now we get to see a week in Obi-Wan's life in the desert.
Yeah. And isn't it thrilling, right? Yeah.
I haven't watched a lot of the Star Wars TV shows, so I have no idea. I'm really glad that we picked this one because I do have a huge Chinese movie hole, but I think that, this is something that I'll probably explore more Chinese movies because of this. Really, honestly, like, to kind of give you some context, like, I really have only seen other Chinese movie I've watched maybe is like Ip Man, which is about martial arts as well, and it's about the guy who taught Bruce Lee everything
okay.
he knew. Like, it's based on the historical time period of maybe like the 30s in China. Really cool movie. Kind of that connection to John Wick 4 is why I kind of was drawn to it. And
that guy.
yeah,
That
yeah.
guy. Right.
So yeah, I mean, there's some really cool things that you can kind of dive into once you've kind of got your bearings with Chinese cinema. And, which honestly, I haven't found too hard to get into.
No, definitely not.
Yeah, I don't know. I think pretty much anybody could get into this movie. Like, it's pretty hard to say you won't like this movie unless you're like maybe somebody who's a little bit like can't maybe suspend disbelief, if anything.
I don't imagine anybody would have a hard time getting into that. Like, I don't know. I did see a couple 3 and 4 star reviews on Letterboxd, but it seems like if you're coming to play. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So when to watch? I mean, this movie's so big that this is like a primetime Saturday night blockbuster for me.
I will say we are recording this on a Sunday, and I watched this last night.
Yeah.
At like 8 p.m. So I'm like, cards on the table. That's your ideal time to watch.
Absolutely it is. And where to watch right now, this one's streaming on CBC Gem, which I was having trouble getting it connected to my TV. So I ended up just renting this one. And like I said, honestly, I think this one's worth a rent or a buy just because streaming, you sometimes lose some of the picture quality. And this is just such a feast on the eyes that, like, I wouldn't want to do yourself any dirtier than as great a picture as you can get.
I hate to be a first world problems kind of guy, but I did watch this on CBC Gem last night, and there were just a few too many ad breaks for me.
Yeah,
like,
that's the other thing I found with CBC Gem. There's just too many ads.
Yeah.
And they're long, too.
I know. So it's like the movie's only 2 hours, but I feel like it took me like 2.5 hours to get through it.
I would guess even longer, potentially.
Probably. So, I mean, again, first world problems, whatever. I didn't feel like shelling out $5, but yeah, I think you'd be better off just renting this one.
Yeah, agreed. So I guess we will see you next time for the deep dive. We've got more coming with the Oscars as well.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oscar season, baby.
Oh, yeah.